Well, it's really, really lovely to be back. To be back with Santa Barbara and Los Olivos folks. And just thank you so much for the warm welcome. As my bio said, and Monica explained, I'm deaf. And so if at any point during my talk you don't understand something I'm saying, or you can't hear me or something, that's fine. Just if you're on Zoom, raise your hand or send me a little message in the chat. And same for those of you who are in person practicing. Give me a little hi sign and I'll repeat myself. As I like to say, I know I'm deaf. You're not going to offend me by letting me know. You're not going to offend me by letting me know you didn't understand something I said. So yes, we're joining you from our little apartment just outside DC. And it was making me think about how our Sangha, our Maha Sangha, our greater Sangha here, is spread out, and how amazing that is. It feels just like it's been just a few minutes since I was in Los Olivos and was able to practice with many of you in person. And now I'm back here in DC, and actually we just got back from Minnesota as well, and I'll tell you that story. But yeah, our Sangha is all kind of spread out. And those of you who might be exploring taking the precepts with Pamela Sensei, you'll be joining our Sangha as well at Jikoji, our mother temple, if you will. And that assuredly makes us sister Sanghas. So what a beautiful feeling. And so please join us as well at No Barriers Zen. You can join us online, or if you're on the East Coast, please come join us, come sit with us. But this beautiful idea of how we're all kind of spread out like this. At first, in the beginning of quarantine and everybody jumping on Zoom and figuring this all out, it wasn't always comfortable. It wasn't always easy or smooth. But I had so many beautiful moments, and I was reflecting about that because we just had a large in-person event. And I was reflecting on this wonderful spread out web, this Indra's net, if you will, of all of us spread out and interconnected in a really different way. I was sitting the other morning with our Sangha, and we have Sangha members in California as well, and across the United States, and in other places around the world that sometimes join us as well. And sitting there on Zoom, watching the light change on my wall, watching the light change and move across our altar, and also watching the light change in the rooms where you are. Or with a lot of our California people who join us really early in the morning, watching the light arise on their screens in their rooms. We even have one or two people who join us occasionally from Alaska. And so really watching the light appear. Think about that. I mean, they're getting up like 4 hours before, in theory, they're getting up 4 hours before the Zazen bell, before that early morning bell. And yeah, so maybe we have some feelings about that. Feelings about getting up early. Or feelings even about Zoom. Some of us are still kind of over it. Why is that? What is that? Maybe it's a quality of, this isn't what I thought it would be. This isn't what I asked for. And maybe we don't need to know how it's going to be. Is that okay? Can you still meet it? Can you still meet it exactly how it is? Can you just be this moment, meeting this moment? When I was in, I'll tell you a little story. When I was in undergrad, there was a Zen group not far from campus. And I used to join them for sitting. They were in the Rinzai tradition. So talk about sister sanghas, they're kind of a cousin, a distant cousin. And actually, they weren't even Rinzai, they're Obaku. And the only reason I mention that is they're this third sect of Zen, where everybody's very familiar with Soto and Rinzai. There's very little Obaku. It's kind of a related to Rinzai. So there's this third sect of Zen, and it's not very big, and it's certainly not very well represented in the West. But they have a wonderful teacher who'd become a practice friend over the years. And when I was really young and sitting with them on these like Wednesday night sits, I would go in and I would sit. And at the end, the teacher would ask me, "How was your sit?" And I would say, "Good, good. It was good." And then we would, clean up and stack the cushions. And then the next week, "How was your sit?" "It was good, sensei. Good, good." And stack the cushions. And this went on for a few weeks. And I thought, wait a minute. How can you have a good sit? How can you have a bad sit? That's not good Zen. That's not right. So I said, I know. Next week, when he asks me, I'll see. I'll see. So the next week, "How was your sit, Ōshin?" And I said, "Bad, bad." And his response was, "Good, good. Now help me stack the cushions." Good, bad. What was he teaching me? What was he showing me over many weeks, over all that time? How was your sit? How was your sit, Sandoval? How was it? Maybe it's not what you thought it was. Maybe you can still meet it directly. So yes, No Barriers Zen, our little sangha, we just finished a summer session. We had about a dozen sangha members come join us in Minnesota, where we have a small group of students, sangha members. And so that's kind of where our sangha is right now with Zoom, and how we've changed and how we're returning to this normal and figuring that out still. We were kind of online with having different one-off events or session in different places around the country. So we decided we were going to do this recent one in Minnesota. And so we had a dozen or so people, and only 4 of us had ever even sat session before. I've done a retreat. And actually, the majority of people who joined us had never sat more than 1 or 2 periods in a row. They just jumped in. And everyone sat every period. It was really, really fantastic, really interesting session. How was your sit? I'm busy. How was your session? So we decided, okay, we're going to just rent an Airbnb, and we're just going to have this session. So we found this place on the shores of the Mississippi River. I know. I always think Mississippi River, not being from the Midwest, I think Mississippi River, I think about the bottom. I think about the Delta. I think about, but it's actually this, massive river flowing all the way through our country. And when it, kind of this bisecting thing, I'm thinking about driving all the way out there, meeting everybody in the middle like that. Well, anyway, so it's in this area where we were set up along the river. It's in this area where the Mississippi is like a big northern kind of delta. So all of these shallow rivers and grasslands flowing together. And that whole area was missed by the glacial flow of the last ice age. So all of a sudden, I've never been here before. I have no idea where I'm going. Google Sensei is telling me to go straight and make a left. And Google Maps Sensei tells me to go straight on. Go straight on. But here we are driving along, following this river, and all of a sudden, these rock formations, these buttes, these mountains appeared. But the rest of the Midwest has been leveled flat for thousands of years. Here, all of a sudden, this untouched area. Maybe I don't know how it is. Maybe I don't know how it's supposed to be. So we rented an Airbnb on the water. We all just showed up. We just did it. We just had a session. And of course, we all confront our stories of how it should be. And what are those stories really telling us? Those stories that we have, those resistances, those things that show up like that, they're just showing us our relationship with the moment. Maybe that's a way we can look at it. So I just turned 40 as well. I turned 40 on Sesshin, which is a very, very, very normal thing for me. Actually, my birthday was while we were driving. A two-day drive to get from the East Coast to get to the Mississippi Delta of Minnesota. But really, every birthday for over a decade, I've either been in residence doing summer retreats or sessions or practice periods, summer ongo, something like that. I've always kind of been in residence or in noble silence kind of for every birthday, pretty much, from college on until now. And, what's that like? What's that like? What's that about? Driving across the country, stopping only for cheese curds, with our car filled to the brim with zafus and zabutons and an altar and a kettle. Just driving across the country to sit with some friends. So it was making me think about a specific birthday I had while on Sesshin. Well, one summer I was doing a practice period and I was one of the tenzo, one of the cooks. And so for the summer, show up at this not so well equipped, not so well maintained retreat center kitchen. We'd cook. And when it's then in the 80s and 90s, that meant in the kitchen itself, it would easily be 100 degrees or more. And we had this big, massive industrial oven that only kind of half worked, and massive cold spots, and it constantly spinning trays and moving things, up and out. It was difficult. A lot of work to cook 3 meals a day and be on your feet like that and chopping away and rushing around and, like monks of old, trying to find time to get in for Dokusan with our teacher, maybe get to sit a few periods between things and get up at 4, chop, 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 and cook your head off. 9:30 or so, collapse. Get up, do it again. Again, again, again. Cooking for 40 or so, 40 plus people. And the other Tenzo I was working with, he had done this a lot more than I had. And he was saying the entire run up to this summer practice period, he was saying, this is my last one. This is it. I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. I'm done. I'm done, man. I'm done. I had to constantly kind of walk him back into the fold. Please don't leave. But he said, okay, this is it, but this will be my last one. And so we talked to the guiding teacher about this, and we got actually special permission to use eggs and dairy that summer. And I thought, oh, this is really great. Instead of being so vegan and so strict, we can kind of live it up a little bit. And my Tenzo brother said, okay, well, this is my last year. I'm going to pull all the stops. I'm going to leave it all in the field. We're going to have this kind of summer. So, I mean, even like one morning, we decided we made individual baked eggs for everybody. You have to picture, 40, 50 people, and we had these muffin tins, these industrial muffin trays, and we'd put tomato sauce in the bottom and crack an egg or two, and then cover it in cheese and herbs. And we put these big trays in and we bake them up, and they, kind of pop out. And there'd be the lovely baked eggs on these cool mornings that we would sometimes have. Well, this would be my life for the summer sometimes and other parts of the year, and really enjoyed it, and it was really tough also. And you would just get into the rhythm of getting up and working your head off and kind of not even thinking, just taking care of what needed to be taken care of. And you would go through this day after day, and you might even forget it's your birthday. So that's what happened. We were cooking along, and I had this moment where I'm chopping away, and I look across the kitchen, and I see my brother Tenzo, my brother cook. And beyond him, I see that rickety oven is actually, it's on. And we were always wrestling with this thing, turning it on and off and preheating it in weird ways, and put a spoon in the door to, just all of these things that we had to do to make it work. And I said to him, hey, is the oven on? And he's, no, not even looking. No, it's not on. And we, okay, just back to work. Dogen said, think not thinking. Okay, just doing my job, man. I just work here. And then the next meal service we're prepping, and I looked over and I said, oh, hey, is the oven on? Are we preheating for something? He said, no. I said, what's going on? He's acting a little strange. And I had this moment where I realized, oh, tomorrow is my birthday. Ah, okay, wink, nod. The oven's not on. Okay, I can see that it's on. He's trying to pull something. Okay. So it goes on like this, and then here comes the dinner service. And then I see the oven is still on, and I say, well, I've baked a few chocolate cakes in my time. But I don't know any cake that bakes for 13 hours. What's going on? So I said to him, hey, I think we've left the oven on. And he comes into the kitchen and he looks, he goes, oh my gosh, the oven is on. When did, and we're trying to figure out, what are we doing? And we kind of lost the plot. So he turns it off and leaves. What? And so I peeked into the oven and I see this wondrous sight of these dozen chocolate cupcakes baking away. I said, oh, wonderful, wonderful. How did they know? You know, one of these. And then after cleaning up, I realized there's no way. I don't know what's going on. And the Tenzo, my brother Tenzo comes back in and I say, how long has the oven been on? You got those cakes in there? And he says, cakes? And we're looking at each other and we realize something's messed up. And he flings open the oven and he hauls out this tray. And we realized we had forgotten a tray of those individually baked egg cups covered in cheese. And they had baked for like 13 hours in the far back of this industrial oven. And they had, these egg cups had ballooned up with cheese and egg and everything, sauce and everything, and just ballooned up and then blackened over with a beautiful, glorious shine. And the only assumption anyone could ever have is that they were chocolate cupcakes for your birthday. Well, dear readers, dear listeners, they were not chocolate cupcakes. And instead, I spent the majority of the next day of my birthday on any little break that I should have had, chipping out chipping out a muffin tin. It's my birthday. This isn't what was supposed to happen. Well, 2-3 hours ago, I had completely forgotten it even was my birthday. So, why are we like this? Why do we do this? Why are humans like this? And sometimes that's what you need to be focusing on in your practice. You know, just need to focus on seeing ourselves clearly, seeing our minds clearly, seeing our tendencies, our habits, seeing it clearly, and learning to focus our attention and develop those qualities of attention. And we can't do that if we're hiding. And we can't do that if we're constantly telling ourselves stories. We can't do that if we're constantly putting barriers in our way, barriers in our practice. Imagine all of these barriers we put up, all these resistances we have, all of these stories we have. All of that energy that we sink into propping those up and perpetuating those stories and keeping that habit energy alive, or holding the door closed. All of that energy that we could be using to instead live our lives, to instead to meet the moment, to meet it how it is. Energy that can become freed up to help us live a more connected, more alive feeling, more purpose-driven life. So, what do you want to let go of? What's in the way? For me right now, I was thinking about that. For me, it's a lot of really subtle qualities of mind that I'm working with right now. I'm noticing comparing and judging coming up in my life and my practice. And so I'm able to, in my practice, to connect with that and look at what it is. Why am I doing that? What is it? What is it? That classic Zen koan of koans that appears in the Japanese and as well as the Chinese and Korean traditions. What is it? What is it? So for me, that's stopping and listening, shining that light inward, as Dogen would say, or as Kobun Chino Roshi would say, to really shine that light, to shine that light inward. And that light of my practice can help me see that fear, to help me see where I got hurt, to help me see the patterns of a culture that no longer serve the culture or serve me. What can be released? What am I ready to let go of? And just sitting on the cushion here, you can just allow that. Just allow your breath to kind of just sweep those away. It's almost like letting silence kind of pull it, kind of sweep it away. Just like the Mississippi, right? Just like just like Monterey Bay, maybe. Just letting the tide coming in and pulling it out. Just letting that silence of our practice. So this is a teaching that I thought I would also share with the Sangha as we embarked on our session together recently. You know, just let the silence, just let this practice sweep it away. You know, very gentle. All of these first-time sitters and first-time session participants, like, just let it, allow. Whatever's happening, just allow it to happen. And we just kept talking about this every day on session. And the gorgeous qualities of light bouncing off the water and shimmering through our zendo. Oh, it's so easy to just say, allow, allow, when you're off in some other place and not in your life, bathed in literal light. Just allow. And then all of a sudden, all of our phones exploded at the same time. And it said, seek shelter, seek shelter, seek shelter. 80-mile-per-hour winds. And we're like, what? No, we're on session. Look at the light. There's not a cloud in the sky. But this is what is happening, actually. This is what's happening now. And it was. Very randomly, out of nowhere, a burst came through. And we had 80-mile-an-hour winds. So we all had to leap up off the cushion and run outside and pick up anything that wasn't nailed down and bring it into the zendo. What else could we do? And these winds whipped through. So at a certain point, we all just went kind of down into the basement. Somebody grabs a bag of, what would you say, a bag of Oreos too. So all of a sudden we're just all huddled in the basement with a bunch of candles, just eating Oreos, still kind of in silence, looking at each other. And then the winds died down and we went upstairs and sat some more. And then the next day, the last day, we just collected all the sticks and we had a nice big bonfire with all the down branches. And we all wrote, I think I'm ready to let go of this. And put it in the fire. That was what happened. That was what was happening. But it's an odd sensation to say, allow, allow, allow. And to be confronted with, well, how much are you ready for? But we've all had those moments in our life where we feel like we're on our being. We feel like we found the rhythm. And then seek shelter, seek shelter. The klaxon, the siren, the air raid siren, the tornado alarm, whatever it is, goes off. The loved one gets sick. Something happens. And you say, okay, I'm ready to let go. I'm ready to do this practice. And then it's 80 miles per hour. And then you say, oh, I'll let go, but not that fast. I'm ready to let go, but not on those terms, on my terms. I could feel myself saying, okay, but not like this. All of these people who I barely know, some of them I barely know. Some of them I barely know. We're all crammed together in this house. I don't know where anything is. And I'm responsible for all of this. And we're having our Wizard of Oz moment. We're going to be lifted up into Technicolor and be flown around. I don't know where I'm going to land. And as we say in Zen, we say all beings preaching dharmas. It's almost like a storm could come and could give you one really good dharma talk. That shows you, hey, you've put some conditions on how you want this to go. You've even put conditions on how you're willing to let go or not. You're putting conditions on how you want it to be after you've let go. Okay, I'm going to let go, but only if it looks like this. Or I'm letting go because I know when I let go, I'm going to get this thing. We all do it. Why put that barrier? Why put that in the way? That's the gateless gate, right? The barrier of no barriers. It's why we call ourselves No Barriers Zen. We're both very interested in removing barriers to the practice so that people with limited access to the practice, people with disabilities and differences and all of it, we want them to practice. We want us to be able to practice. But also at its core, it's a play on words of this barrier that we have, these barriers that we put up. What's the open way in front of you without all of your added conditions? How can you step forward without becoming caught up in the beliefs you have about how things should be or the beliefs you have about yourself? And in turning that light and in shining that light, how do we become not caught on those barriers I've placed? How can I see beyond this? Maybe I'm going to see beyond this small person to see that greater, wider view. This isn't how it's supposed to go. I mean, here we are in an Airbnb. It's maybe it barely feels like a temple to me. Maybe being on Zoom isn't what I wanted. Maybe this weird deaf monk from DC, calling in from the DC area to tell you how you should live your life isn't what I want. I'll tell you another little story. This is a koan from the Book of Serenity. This is case number 4. And it goes something like this. Once upon a time, the world honored one was walking with the gods, the devas, and the humans. When he paused, he pointed to the ground and he said, "This is a suitable site to build a temple." The god Indra then plucked a blade of grass from nearby and stuck it in the ground at that spot where the Buddha had pointed, and Indra declared, "The temple is built." The world honored one smiled. So, what is this? What does this call on? What does it mean to us? I'm building a little community. We're going on sesshin. I can just click and open Zoom and the temple is built. Or click, purchase Airbnb from date X to date X. Oh yeah, credit card, last 4 digits. Yep, the temple is built. Is it real? Is it enough? While sitting with this koan, some things arose for me. There's this feeling sometimes that, is this the correct way to do this? Is this enough? Or how? How do I do this? How do I walk forward? What's the next right move in my life even? Can I be satisfied with the connections I have in my life and the physical connections or lack of physical connections I have in my life right now? The lack of a physical meeting place for our Sangha. But then there's also this bigger theme when I drop down through that. This bigger theme for me is, how do I feel about what's being said? Here we go. Just like that. There's not a lot of resistances I can have. If the god Indra's come down and plucked it up and put it right in the center of my life, the whole world is the temple. The temple is your intention. The temple's just my intention. And in my effort, yeah, it's like the temple is everywhere I practice, everywhere I meditate, everywhere I am. The temple's everywhere we meet. With our Sangha, it's great to see people joining us, on Zoom from work, from their cars, from a park. All of a sudden, Los Olivos, Alaska, Wabasha, Minnesota. The whole world is activated. What is it then? What is it? Maybe the temple is our intimacy. Indra comes down and plants a blade of grass, and Buddha smiles. Buddha smiled to show his approval, maybe. But the temple is also Buddha's smile. It's us. It's our connection. It's us practicing together. Now, yes, this koan is on one hand about what it is to build a temple and what it is to practice and what it is to be sangha. And it's also, for me, about building places of refuge for ourselves, because it's what's needed. And for me, that's why I practice right now. That's what I'm doing. And also, on the other hand, how many hands is that? I keep contradicting myself. I'm going to end up like Avalokiteshvara. On the other hand, it's about how we view the world, right? It's about practicing in a way, maybe, where we can become a place of refuge. How our homes, our communities, our towns, our sanghas, and ourselves can become a place of refuge. And how do we do that? Sometimes maybe it's just about turning the whole world into our temple. You know, what's here? What's here? What can I use? And that's all Indra did, right? That's all. He used exactly what he had to illuminate, to shine his light, to shine the light, and to help others shine theirs. Just boop. It's built. It's built. You don't have to worry about that. It's done. You can now show up fully without judging or comparing yourself or your practice, without judging or comparing this moment to another moment, this sangha with another sangha, this job with another job, this partner with another partner. And why grass? Why did he pluck up a blade of grass? This is, if you've studied the Zen canon, the Zen literature for a while, you'll understand, you'll start to pick up on various in-speak and themes that we have. One of them, grass. You'll hear a lot about grass tips, grass, or blades of grass, or the 10,000 grass tips, or something like that. Anytime you hear a large number, like 10,000 usually, you can just cross out that line and underneath it, just write everything. So anytime somebody is saying the 10,000 grass tips, they're saying all phenomena, the multitudes. So on the one hand, you have some of you have been studying me or Pamela Sensei with another teacher or Sangha, and we understand that. It's relative. You've got Ōshin, got Tess interpreting, you've got Susan joining on Zoom, got Monica, you've got all these people. Ōshin has Ōshin's bills he has to take care of. Susan has to prepare Susan's lunch. We understand we live in a relative world, and it has to function like that. Ōshin understands he is one with all things. He has to take care of his things too. So understanding that oneness is understanding the opposite. It's so we can see all the grass tips. By plucking one up, is it one? Is it many? So I won't give away the whole game, but this koan goes deeper than that. It goes deeper still. How? How do you actualize the Dharma right where you are? Indra did it to Buddha's approval. He brought forth all the relative and all the absolute with one move, one gesture. With what? With what was there. That is how we make sanctuary. That's how we make the refuge. By bringing together all the parts, by bringing together what's there. By stepping out of our fixed views and by meeting that moment. That's actualizing the Dharma with what's there. How? How do I do it? In front of Buddha, in front of the early Sangha, in front of all the gods and devas, all come down in that moment for this powerful moment. How? How do you do it? Just be the moment, meeting the moment. That's it. It's collapsing those distances and embracing a greater intimacy with all things. Maybe it's visiting a friend who's sick. Maybe it's opening the church doors or the hospice doors and setting up the cushions. Maybe it's cleaning the bathroom again and again and again. Maybe it's learning to be a little more tender with yourself when you're getting frustrated. That your art isn't looking like how it looked in your head. When we let go of criteria, when we let go of judging and comparing what my art should look like, what my sesshin experience should look like, what a temple should look like, what Buddha's shining temple should look like. Instead, you build it. You're always building it. With Mississippi mud, with Monterey Bay seals, the little birds that flit around in Los Olivos, with picking up trash. Do you know? Do you think if Indra was walking with Buddha through San Francisco, maybe instead of a blade of grass, it would be a hypodermic needle. But I don't want that. It's not what I... Well, you said shine the light. That... Use what's there. Harmonize what's there. Bring it forth. Pick up that trash. Stick it in the garbage can. The temple is built. Eat Oreos in the basement. Huddle together with your Sangha. This is one of the weirder birthdays I've had. So I'd like to end with the poem. So each koan from these koan collections, each case, we call that the koan actually a case, the main body of it. And then you have the associated commentaries, and there's an intro section, and monks over the years have added little things in the headings and footers, and we study these things. But the original poem from this collection, I'd like to read it to you. The boundless spring on the 100 plants, picking up what comes to hand, he uses it knowingly. The 16-foot tall golden body, a collection of virtuous qualities, casually leads him by the hand into the red dust, able to master in the dusts. From outside creation, a guest shows up. Everywhere, life is sufficient in its way, no matter if one is clever as others. So friends, thank you for your practice. I encourage you to drop it, drop your practice, drop all the criteria, and just practice. Just build the temple. Go out there, build the refuge you need, build the refuge the world needs, and just be this moment, meeting this moment.